A film director has been caught out by a recent law change banning anyone travelling from America from entering New Zealand with medicinal cannabis. Full stop. Mitchell Stein was deported from Auckland Airport on January 27th after openly declaring he was carrying cannabis prescribed by his doctor for pain management of a severe case of carpal tunnel syndrome. Mr. Stein says he was only made aware of a law change in December which prohibits the import of any medicinal cannabis products from the US after officials saw his declaration form and the 2 ounces of cannabis he was carrying. He told me via Skype video he made an honest mistake. He had a doctor's certificate, he'd been prescribed it, and he declared it. But he shouldn't have had it at all, according to Customs. As a result, he was sent home. His 3-week holiday was ruined, and he says he was humiliated at the border as Customs officials went through their belongings.
All along the way, I was completely forthcoming. I told them upon arrival that I had this, and we were questioned in great detail about things that had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the cannabis. We were asked very personal questions by this agent. My wife, who is an attorney, was appalled by the questions that were being asked, but I motioned for her to please just keep it calm, because all I wanted to do at that point was to be as accommodating, cooperative, and law-abiding as I could possibly be to smooth the situation.
Mitch, did the police get involved in any stage? So you are talking to Customs people and they are searching you and questioning you, and you have real issues with the tone of that question line. Did the police come in, given that you were bringing cannabis into the country?
Yes, they did. As a matter of fact, there was an officer who came over to tell us that he had reviewed all of the details of the situation and had determined that we were not drug smugglers. We were not trying to break any laws. This was clearly an honest error, a misunderstanding based upon an understanding of the law that had up until just a month ago been in place. And he indicated to us that as far as the police were concerned, they had no cause to hold us, to charge us with any crime. And in fact, he offered to go with us to the immigration office to attest to that fact, to tell the people in immigration, hey, you know, there are drug smugglers trying to get into our borders and we should do all we can to stop them. But here's a situation of somebody who was simply trying to bring his medicine into the country. It was a misunderstanding. We have no problem with it at this point. That was our understanding from the police officer directly.
So you arrived with cannabis that you had been prescribed, that you had a prescription for and a doctor's covering letter for, and you were prevented from entering New Zealand and sent home.
Exactly. And beyond just being denied entrance to New Zealand and being sent home, hours earlier, when my wife was waiting with me in the immigration office, the agent who had been dealing with me the whole time came out and told my wife that since she was no longer a person of interest, that she would be allowed to leave and continue the trip. And she would have to then take her suitcase and go into the airport lobby to wait for me. And she was very upset at being split up, because we're a team. You know, we're traveling here together. We've been together 14 years. We're here to enjoy your country with our son, and we're being separated at the border. So she was in tears. I did all that I could to help calm her down. And I said, you know, don't worry, I'll be out in a little while. This is all going to get taken care of. Well, it wasn't. And several more hours went by, and I was interviewed, and I explained the situation, and I explained that, you know, I'm here with medicine, with a doctor's prescription. I'm not a drug smuggler. I'm not a terrorist. I don't have any explosives. I'm not bringing heroin into the country. This is a non-lethal, naturally occurring plant. And I followed what I believe to be the letter of the law. There was no attempt to hide anything, to smuggle anything, or anything other than completely above board. Regardless, the agent informed me that since the law had just changed, my importation of my medicine was now being considered importation of drugs. And in fact, the amount that I brought in was large enough to now possibly have me charged with intent to distribute.
Did you say to them, take the cannabis, I will come into New Zealand without it? Did you make that offer?
I did. I made the offer. I said, look, you have now confiscated my medicine. I am not arguing that point. I'm not saying I want it back. It's an unfortunate situation. It was an honest error on my part. But now that you have the cannabis and you see that I am being upfront and forthcoming and I'm not a smuggler, can I at least join my wife and son for this trip? And he said, absolutely not, because since you admitted that you use cannabis as pain relief, you stand a very high risk of coming into our country and seeking it out.
Mitch, is your wife still here? So you were sent back to the United States for being in possession of $300 worth of medicinal cannabis that you had a doctor's note and prescription for, etc. Your wife, though, continued with the holiday that you had saved for and planned for and looked forward to?
She didn't want to. She was so upset. But she was forced to wait in the airport lobby for 4 hours waiting for this decision to be made, just torn up about the whole thing. And when I finally called her to tell her the decision that had been made, she broke down in tears and said that she wanted to come back with me. And I said, absolutely not. I will not allow this injustice to get in the way of your ability to spend the quality time with your son that you planned on. This isn't your fault. This is my fault. I acknowledge here and now that it's my responsibility to have checked with the laws before I left the country to see if by chance they had changed in the month since I checked them. That's my fault. It's my responsibility, and I don't put that on anyone else. I do, however, put the responsibility of the way I and my family were treated by your government on you and on your government, because there's no excuse for it. It's deplorable.
Mitchell Stein, who was deported from Auckland Airport after bringing in medicinal cannabis, which he had a doctor's prescription for, but which is not allowed into New Zealand, sent home. We'd love your feedback on that. New Zealand Customs told us whilst it's easy to determine whether cannabis can be lawfully supplied in most countries, this is not the case for the US, where there's a conflict between federal law and the law of an increasing number of states. As a result, on December 7th, it updated information to travellers from the US to clarify that cannabis plant matter and other products containing cannabis do not meet the test of, quote, lawfully supplied, end quote, and cannot be imported into New Zealand under the misuse of drugs exemption, as Mitch Stein learnt to his considerable cost.